Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd. And this is what month is it? Is it June already? The June 2012 water cooler, which is our affectionate name for our TABS 3 Practice Master virtual user group meeting. Welcome. We're going to talk for the next 30 minutes about two topics. Throw a couple hints in there. What are our topics today, Mary Jo? Oh, Mary Jo's going to talk about doing anything to a payment and to any payment. In other words, reversing it, adjusting it, moving it, whether it's been processed on a final bill or not. And I'm going to talk about using filters as a kind of a quick way to get straight to a certain set of information as an alternative to using a report. We're also going to talk about version 16.2, but don't tell anyone because it's not even in beta yet, so I'm not really supposed to tell anyone. And we're going to give you a hint on making your memo fields bigger for those of you who are like me, in other words, blind. And we're going to tell you that this is the second water cooler in a row where I've known that it's summer. You may remember that I knew it was summer last time because Irv was here. Maybe that was 2 times ago. Irv is the guy that cuts the grass at our office. Now I know it's summer because Mary Jo looks like Whistler's mother. She's got herself all wrapped up in blankets with one of my son's hoodies on, which is exactly what Whistler's mother looked like. At least that's what it reminds me of. And why is that? Because I have the air conditioning on. So welcome to the second summer edition of the water cooler. We're going to start with Mary Jo talking about payments, but I just remembered, I've forgotten to tell you that you can ask questions at any point during the broadcast, either by raising your hand or by typing a question directly. Now, you probably have something on the right-hand side of your screen that is either a big box or with a little box jutting off to the left, or maybe you just have that little box. If you just have the little box, then you know how to get rid of the big box because you did that by clicking the arrow in the little box in the icon at the top of the little box that looks like an icon that looks like arrows pointing to the right. Jutting off to the left from the big box is a series of icons, and the top one is arrows pointing to the right. That will move that big box out of the way. That might clear up that big box from covering up all of my screen, or part of my screen, so you might want to do that. When you do that, that icon turns into arrows that point to the left. Clicking it again will slide that control panel out again. That's where you type your questions. There's a place that says questions. If you expand it, you'll see you can just type a question right there, and we will get that question answered. If you're feeling a little bit bold, you can also raise your hand. One of the icons that juts out to the left is a hand with an arrow pointing upwards in front of it. That is raising your hand. Today, we also have a very exciting surprise guest. It's Dan. Daniel gets to get his voice. He's been with us for quite a while now, but has never gotten to moderate one of our user group meetings. That's because Leanne, our regular moderator, never goes on vacation, but this week she is. She's on a cruise, and hopefully will come back. But for now, Daniel is our moderator. So if you raise your hand, Daniel will unmute you, let you ask your question. If you just type a question, Daniel will read it for you, and if you have a follow-up question, just type it in there. He'll make sure to get that answered too. So without any further ado, here's Mary Jo to talk about payments.
Hello, everybody, and it is very cold in here, I have to say, but anyway, you do need a blanket and a sweaty and a hoodie and whatever the heck you need. I don't even know who Whistler's mother is, so that's how, whatever. But I'm going to talk to you about adjusting payments today. It's probably one of the #1 questions I get every day to how do I reverse this payment, how do I transfer this payment to another matter, how do I split it between matters, how do I reverse it, how do I refund it. All of those things we're going to talk about today. So we're going to go into tabs, and I'm going to just go into Client Manager here. One of the first things you have to ask yourself when you're trying to move or adjust a payment is it still in WIP, or have I already included it on a statement that has been updated? And the reason you need to know that is there's 2 different ways that we're going to look at changing payments. And one way you can see under one section of the software, and another you have to have it in a different place. So we want to make sure, has it been included on a statement already, or is it still in WIP? The best way that I find to see if it is still in WIP is to just go to Client Manager. And I know I kind of train on this quite a bit, but if there's a few of you out there that don't know where Client Manager is or you haven't been in Client Manager, it's a little icon here on your main screen, or it's underneath the client screen over here is Client Manager. And you can see everything in Client Manager that you need to see. So I love coming in here because if there's any changes I need to do, or I need to know if something's in WIP, or I need to see client funds, any of that, it's all right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at a payment and see whether it's over here. If it shows up on this screen next to the payments button, that means it's still in WIP. You could have prepared a statement and have some AR, but then you could have had a payment come in later, and then it would be here zeroing out that balance. So it's not been on that next statement yet, so it's still in WIP. The other one that you would see, if it, and I can show you, I guess I could have went down here to our, here's a payment that is still in WIP. I can see I've got a $1,000 payment here, and it's making this be a negative AR balance because this has not been billed yet. So all of this is in WIP right now. When I actually bill, it will adjust that balance and put that up into the AR, and then this payment would not be here anymore. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what do we do if a payment is in WIP and I have to either reverse it or I have to change and split it between matters, or just transfer it to another matter. Maybe this is an overpayment and it needed to go to another matter in its entirety. If that's the case, I can come in here and I can just either, to transfer it to another matter, I would go to my Transfer Transactions, which is underneath my Transaction tab, and we have a little transfer, the arrow with the money going back and forth. And so if it's still in WIP, and I want to transfer the entire amount, I could come in here and put the one matter from which it's already in, and then two, whichever other matter I need to send it to. Click on Payment, and then I could choose, let me go into that particular one so we can bring it up and see it. So we know that Martin is here. And let's say I want to transfer it to Martin's other matter, the 01 matter. I can then choose Payment. Now, I like to look at my reference numbers because what if that $1,000 was made up of 2 payments and I only want one of those to go over? Or what if there were 3 payments in there, whatever. I want to make sure I'm transferring the right payment. So I always look at the reference number, and in this case there is only one $1,000 payment. But if I had 3 amounts here making up that 1,000, I could choose the ones I want to transfer. So I can say, okay, I just want the number 1 to here. You can also do it by date. You can do it by timekeeper, all kinds of things. But I find the reference numbers the easiest because I can do the drop down and see each individual payment. So at that point, I've chosen that I want that payment transferred from the 00 matter to the 01 matter. I can say okay, and it's now been transferred. If I go over here to my Client Manager again to take a look at that, I can see that now that payment is gone. But if I go under my 01 matter, it has been moved over to this matter here, and it's now got that payment over here. And I can see by looking at the payment button here that there's my $1,000 payment, and there was also a $300 payment in there from before. So that's just moving the entire amount. Now, if you have to split it and it's still in WIP, at that point you're going to actually have to change the payment here. So I would have to go into that $1,000 payment, and I'd have to change it. Let's say I needed $500 on this matter and $500 on another. So I would have to change this payment here and then go back out to my 00 matter and put in another payment for $500. The other thing, if it is for the same client, I mean, sometimes you're changing that from one client to another, not just a matter, and that you would have to do this manually. You would have to do the 500 and then put the 500 on the other client. But you could also split that. I could do the $1,000, and there is a little button up here that I could actually, it's not even available on here. I'm wondering if that, oh, I don't have any balances. If I had balances out there, there is a button here that will allow you to apply the payment to multiple matters. So I would be able to split that and, put it out there to those multiple matters and, do it that way. But I would say probably just make this one be the $500, save it. It's an unapplied payment for this one. And then I would go over to my 0 matter and just create a $500 payment here. And that way I could do a new payment, put in the $500, and then I would have that split between those matters. Okay? If it has already been billed, All right, let's go back to Jimmy Johnson because he had a payment in here that was already billed onto a statement. If I had to refund this payment to him, I can go into my maintenance, transaction related, and there is a payment adjustment screen. So I can go into that payment adjustment screen, choose my matter, and then I can choose the payment that I want to work with. And I need to get in there under Jimmy. Do the drop down. Here's my $500 payment that I want to work with. Now I've got a couple of different options here that I can do. If this were an unapplied amount, it would show me the amount that was unapplied in this particular payment. So if, for example, this was a situation where you did have a $1,000 payment and you had applied it all here and 500 of it was supposed to go to another matter, it would show me that I had an overpayment of $500. And at that point I could just do a refund, and then I could do the unapplied amount and put in that $500, and then on the next screen show you that I want to change it to a different matter. This is not an unapplied amount, unfortunately. I'll have to go in and find a different one maybe. But that is where you would go ahead and transfer it to another matter or into client funds, wherever you want to move it, because you really don't want unapplieds out there. If it was just a complete reversal, this was a payment that got put in here by mistake, it wasn't even supposed to be on here at all, I can go ahead and do a reversal. Or if this was an NSF check, you know, you always have those come in and we just want to reverse it out of tabs, but not out of general ledger because it was already deposited over general ledger. I can do a reversal and say I want this full reversal done. Sure, I want to adjust it, yes. Here's the screen I'm talking about. If I'm going to write a check for the reversal, I would have this be yes, because I'm going to actually write a check out to the client. If I'm not, it's going to be no. And then what do I want to do with it? Either nothing, just simply record the reversal because I just want this reversed in tabs, or I want to create a payment for a different client matter. Here I can choose it. Or I can deposit that amount into client funds for whichever matter or client I want to. So that's how I can handle those reversals is, you know, either I'm going to write a check back, or I'm just going to record it, or I'm going to transfer it to another client, or deposit it into client funds. So you've got all these options within this payment adjustment window. So it just depends on what you need to do, and you just kind of have to think that through. You know, has it been billed? Okay, I have to go to payment adjustment under maintenance. Has it not been billed? It's a WIP payment, then I can do it through transfer transactions. I can delete it if it's just not supposed to be there, or I can re-enter it. Now, if you have general ledger, you have to remember that, you know, if you were reversing a payment and you do want that, you know, taken out of your bank account or out of the journal entry, and it's been included in a deposit slip or you've reconciled it, you will have to go over to general ledger and make that manual reversal entry because it won't be able to do that if it's been included on one of those things. And you'll get a little message. It's always like the message everybody's afraid of, you know, oh my gosh, it said it couldn't, you know, I might have to make journal entries or it won't make journal entries. What do I do with that? I always just find it best just go to general ledger, see if there has been a reversal entry on there. You can go right to your, you know, either your bank account, you can go to the fee account, the unapplied account, any of those, do a general ledger report, take a look at it. I also like to just go into my journal report or just go in like I'm going to start a journal entry, and if it made the journal entry, if I look at the record, my most current journal entry will be at the top of the page. So if there is a reversing entry right here, I would be able to see that it had made it. If it did, great. If it didn't, then you have to just come in and make a manual journal entry to take that back out. So there's a whole bunch of different things here. I know we covered this pretty quickly, but there's, you know, if you get a payment in there and it has to come out, there's always a way to do it. It's just going in and just trying to figure out the best way to do it. Questions?
Yes. Laura has a question. The question is, I have a negative AR balance for a client after updating her statement on matter 1. I wish to take that amount of approximately $2,000 and transfer it to her other matter 2 without moving all the information from her first file. Any suggestions?
That would be up here on the payment adjustment. Oops, I'm in GL. Let me get back over to tabs. On this payment adjustment screen, since it's already been included and it's in an AR, you know, payment, then you would do that here, and there would be an unapplied amount here. So whatever that amount is that you need to move, you would just do a reversal, I'm sorry, you do a refund in that case, and then you would actually have an unapplied amount, and then you would just go over on that next screen and you would say transfer it to that other matter. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have another question from Kathy. She says, credit card payments are made in one lump sum, so to apply to each invoice in each matter, should we use the transfer transactions?
I don't know that you could use the transfer transactions because the transfer transactions is going to do the whole amount. It's not going to let you do part of that and transfer it to another matter. It's going to want you to do all of it. So in that case, either you can bill it, include it on a statement, and then come in here and refund and move it under the payment adjustment, or you can just go in and modify that payment to be, and I'm not sure if credit card ones, trying to think if you could just do that, apply to multiple statements. I'm pretty sure that you can. So you may want to just go in and re-enter that payment and then use your little apply to multiple matters. And then it will, if it's not the exact amount of what has been billed for those matters, because sometimes you combine those matters and you build them all out. And if it's not, what will happen is it'll open a box up, and it will have all of the matters that have a balance, and you will be able to manually go into each one of those in a little pop-up box and say, okay, matter 1 gets $500, matter 2 gets $200, matter 3 gets this amount. And it will show you what their current balance is on each one of those, so you can apply it that way. But if you just put in that total amount of, we have a old date here, so let me put in my 11/11/11 date. If you come in here and I have a multiple payment here, I would put in that full $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever it is, and then just click that button, and then it would allow me, it'll bring up this window here that would have all of the matters listed and what their balance due is. And then I can, on each one of these, I can double-click it or say I want to use, Jimmy Johnson. In this case, he's only got one matter, but I would see all those. It would pop up that client ID up here, and then I could put in the amount I want for that matter, save it, do the next one, save it, and then when I'm all done, just say OK. So that would be the way I would say to just split that when you're entering it right from the beginning and you know you have to split it. You could bring this up and then do it that way. Or you could do the adjustment. Other questions? Okay. I'll turn it over to Paul.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Thank you, Daniel. I am going to talk about using filters as a quick alternative to reports. Now, Practice Master has a really good report writing capability built into it. And if I wanted to go in, for instance, to the report writer and take a look at the alpha, maybe I want a list of clients for a certain timekeeper. So I want all the clients where Bob is the primary timekeeper. And I can pull up this report and modify it or create a copy and modify it. But the problem with that is the report writer is a little bit complex. You need to define the layout and the sort sequences. And I mean, just looking at this screen will make some people's heads spin. You have a query that you need to define. And in this instance, we've actually defined that query by defining these things called user-defined fields. It gets a little hairy when it comes to writing a report and having it look exactly the way you may want it. And if you really just have a quick need for some bit of information, or maybe it's something that you always want to display on the screen anyways, a filter might be a good alternative. If I were to go into the client file right here, I can, over on the right, when I'm in the list view, I can see something called filters. And as you'll notice right here, if I click on Paul Active Cases or Clients, it'll show me these two clients and put a little check mark next to that filter. That's because this filter has been designed to show me all the matters that are currently active that have a timekeeper, primary timekeeper of Paul. You'll notice that when I click it, only 2 show up. And this is what it looks like. And it's got this thing called an expression. Now what that means is not inactive, and primary timekeeper employee equals 1. Now, that part may seem a little daunting, but in a minute we're going to create that same filter to show you Leanne's active cases, because she's the other primary timekeeper in this demo system that's got active cases. And you'll see it's not that bad. Let's take a look at that. So when I am highlighting a filter, clicking Add Edit Filter will take me into editing that filter. But if I do not have a filter active, and I click Add Edit Filter, the assumption is that instead of editing a filter, which I can't do because there's not one active, I am adding one. So if I go ahead and type Leanne active matters, or whatever it is that I want to appear, I could go ahead, if it was me, I would type the expression right in here because I'm nerdy. Mary Jo points out that most of our clients are not. So you can use something called the Query Wizard. And in the Query Wizard, you can pick from a list of fields. So if we scroll down, we can say inactive, and we can click here and choose a condition, and we'll want to say is false. In other words, they are not inactive, meaning they are active. There's one other condition. I want to make sure Leanne is the primary timekeeper. So I'm going to add a new row. I can say and or. And here I want it to be and. I want it to be both active and Leanne be the primary timekeeper. The field would be primary timekeeper. Equal to. And then I can click here. And it'll even show me a list of people. Inactive and primary timekeeper equal to, and then it replaced that with 3 because that's Leanne's timekeeper number. Now when I activate this filter, I see the other 2 cases. It's really that simple. And beyond that, if you can't figure out how to make your query work in the selection expression or in the wizard, a quick call to Mary Jo or me can usually resolve that sort of a question in under 1/10 of an hour. So rather than calling Mary Jo and saying, can you help me with this report, and have it be a 30, 40, 50-minute task, if you've already gone far enough to get a filter started and all you need is a little bit of help with the selection expression, which is a fancy term for a query. I'm sorry, sometimes I talk nerd. That can be a very simple thing for us to help you with. Now, another thing that's kind of neat about filters is they apply all over the place. Any file that you can open up, you can have a filter for. So for instance, here in Contacts, I've created a filter called Dundee Clients that when we look at it, you'll see that it says city equals Dundee. I could open up a lot of files, and some people don't know that you can do this, but I can open up the calendar file, and I could show all the calendar items that use the code PRT for pretrial. And I could even say, show me all the ones that use the code PRT for pretrial within a certain date range. And I could even have that date range be something that gets adjusted as I run it, so that I could say every once in a while I'm going to want to look at this for the next 2 weeks, and all you'd have to do is edit those values that you specify. So any file that can be opened can have a filter applied to it. And as I said, not many people know it, but you can open not only the client and contact files, but also the calendar file, the journal file, fees, costs, the document file, even the eNote file. And there may be other files that are built into your system under different areas of practice, certain common client-related files, like most of our clients have a people file. Anything that's in your system has a file that can be opened can have a filter applied to it. Any questions, Daniel?
Yes, Anne has a question. She wants to know, are these then saved as a report?
No, these are not reports. The same expression that gets built in here, for instance, if I go back into that one that says city equals Dundee, this right here, if I were to copy that, I could paste that into a report. I could build a report, but a report is a little bit more. A report has to be started in the report writer. And if we open up this thing here and look at the query, this is where that selection expression goes, where that query goes. But there's a little bit more to a report. A report has a layout that tells how things should appear on the page. A report has the need to specify some values up here and to select which files you're reporting on. You do have a lot more functionality and flexibility about how you define certain fields and collect data up front. A report can be much more powerful, but also a bit more complicated. If I were to run this report, just so you could see, I'm going to do a list of all my active clients, and I can preview it, and this is what that looks like. And it can be very, it's counting how many there are, it's laying out the fields in a certain order. I have a lot of flexibility and a lot of capability in how I show things in a report. A filter is more of a quick list to be able to, on Bob's computer, have him be able to click on something and show him all his active clients. Not quite as much flexibility as far as how you lay things out and how they look, and you can't really print them out, but a filter is very useful in those instances where you want a quick query on a certain bit of information. Anything else, Daniel?
Yeah, Ann says that she meant, is it saved under the filter tab so you can use it again and again?
Yes, it is. If I go back here, get out of reports, if I were to add a new one, let's say that I not only want my Dundee clients, but I want my Petersburg clients, so I'm just going to copy this real quick. I can create a new filter called Petersburg clients. Paste this in here, change the name. And of course I could use the query wizard too. And there I have the same one, only for Petersburg, and now I have two filters showing up here. Now, just between you and me, as long as you promise not to tell anybody, these filters are on my desktop in my Practice Master when I'm logged in as me. In version 16.2, you'll be able to, in this definition here, you'll be able to check a checkbox that says make this available to all users. So you can even define filters from your desktop, from your login, that would then be system-wide. Now you can make this filter apply on somebody else's in the version you have by simply going over their machine and copying that query in and creating it for them. And if you've set up a user, this is your extra tip for the day, if you set up something called a default user, which I believe we have, and I think we even have in this demo system. Okay, I lied. If you set up a default user, D-E-F-A-U-L-T, for people who are like me and can't spell, and then log in as default and create a filter in any version prior to 16.2, then that filter that you create under that default user will already be there whenever anybody else logs in. If somebody's logged in when you create it, they will have to log out and log back in to get that, but that's a way to do that in the version that you might have right now. Now, speaking of version 16.2, there are a lot of neat things in it. One of them being, if you are a Platinum client, the ability to see Practice Master data from an iPad, an Android tablet, an iPhone, any device that's connected to the Internet. There's also something called a Working Timekeeper Accounts Receivable Report, which is also a Platinum-only feature. And there are quite a few other features that are geared toward everybody, including non-Platinum clients. If anybody has any interest in being a beta test site, they can just email me at paul.purdue@attorneycomputersystems.com, paul.purdue, like the school, not the chicken, at attorneycomputersystems.com, and I will be able to get you signed up to be a beta for version 16.2. Particularly interesting, I'm sure, to the people that are Platinum clients that want to get their hands on that web access to Practice Master. It is incredibly simple to set up. It is incredibly powerful. I've been using it for about a week now and can't get my hands off of it. And we have quite a few clients that would love to get their hands on that Working Timekeeper AR report. That's also going to be available and in version 16.2, and you can get your hands on it a little bit early by participating in the beta. You do not have to do this, of course. You'll get it on maintenance when it's released, but if you want to get it early, it's a good way to do it. The only obligation you have is to report feedback. They'll send you a link with a questionnaire about maybe 3 or 4 times, something that'll take about 5-10 minutes to fill out. That's what you're giving them. You're giving them that feedback, and I will tell you that the STI betas are more solid than other products' final release copies. They've never had anybody lose data to a beta, so it's not really something to worry about. But if you're feeling squeamish, then you might just want to wait for the final release to be put out. Now, I did also promise a tip for the day. Mary Jo, do you remember this one? Good. You don't. I'm going to go into Practice Master. I'm going to go to something that's got a screen like this. I'm going to type some stuff, and then I'm going to use Shift. What was it? Here we go. I'm holding down the Control key, and I am scrolling the scroll control. Is that what it's called on my mouse? Control scroll on the mouse makes that bigger and smaller. Plus and minus? Really? Huh. I'm not getting that. Mary Jo, you want to try? Yeah, I see what you're talking about, Dan. But in any event, Control and the scroll on your mouse will make that bigger or smaller. Now, again, something in version 16.2, that will stick. So that if you were to come back in version 16.2 and had done this, these screens would still, what we call memo fields, would still be bigger when you come back in. For now, in the version you have to keep doing it every time you go into one and want to see it a little better. Just hold down Control and scroll back with your scroll control on your mouse, and that'll get bigger. And if you want to take it back, whoop, scroll back to get smaller, scroll forward to get bigger. Okay. Any questions, Daniel?
Nope.
Okay. We have not picked our topics for next month, so I apologize. Watch your email. They should be up on the website this afternoon, because that's the last thing we do when we close out the day that we've had the virtual user group meeting, is to announce the topics for next week. So check back this afternoon if you're interested. Otherwise, wait for that email, and we will see everybody next month. Have a great month of summer. Thanks much. Bye-bye.